Emily Carter was an investigative journalist. She lived for danger. She thrived on chasing stories others had long abandoned, stories too dark, too dangerous, too strange for the average reporter to touch. She wasn't satisfied with easy headlines. No, Emily wanted secrets, the kind that powerful people tried to bury, the kind that could change everything if revealed. One stormy evening, as rain tapped against her window, an anonymous email arrived. No subject, no greeting, only a single attachment. It was an old, grainy newspaper clipping from the late 1980s. The words described something unbelievable: a remote island off the coast of Maine, and a massive facility that once stood there. According to the faded report, people had been kidnapped, dragged to this island, and forced to participate in deadly survival games. The note beneath the clipping contained only 6 words: "The island is still there. The truth is waiting." Emily's heart pounded as she read it again and again. Part of her wanted to ignore it, but the other part, the part that always won, demanded answers. Within days, she packed her bag, rented a small boat from a quiet harbor town, and set off alone. The sea was merciless. Waves crashed against the sides. Cold spray stung her face. The lighthouse on shore grew smaller, then vanished into fog. Hours later, the island appeared like a jagged shadow on the horizon, cliffs rising, trees twisting in unnatural shapes. The moment her boots touched the sand, her fully charged phone flickered, then went dead. No power, no signal, nothing. Emily's stomach tightened, but she pressed on. With only a flashlight and a paper map clipped to the email, she stepped into the dense forest. The deeper she went, the darker it grew, the air heavy, the silence broken only by the crunch of leaves beneath her shoes. The wind hissed through the branches, low and hollow, almost like whispers. Somewhere far off, faint cries carried through the trees. Not animals, not wind, human cries. Emily stopped, breath shaking, her hand gripping the flashlight tighter. She forced herself forward, following the coordinates scrawled on the map. And then, without warning, everything went black. When she opened her eyes again, she was lying on a cold stone floor, head pounding, chest tight. The air reeked of dust and iron, thick and suffocating. Slowly, Emily pushed herself up and raised her flashlight. The beam cut through pitch darkness, revealing rough walls, metal doors, stains on the ground that she knew weren't just rust. She staggered forward until the corridor opened into a massive hall. Dozens of people were huddled inside, wrists bound, faces pale with terror. Guards in black uniforms, masks hiding their faces, rifles slung across their chests, barked orders in harsh voices. One stepped forward and explained the rules, his tone cold, rehearsed. Each prisoner would run across the hall with a marble balanced on a spoon held in their mouth. If the marble dropped, they would be executed instantly. Emily's stomach turned. Her mind refused to process it. But she didn't have long to doubt. A young woman no older than 20 was dragged forward, trembling. She placed the marble on her spoon, her hands shaking uncontrollably as she took a step. The hall was silent. The only sound her uneven breaths. Step after step, closer to safety. Then the marble slipped, clattering against the floor. A gunshot cracked through the silence. The woman's body fell limp, blood spreading across the stone. Emily froze, every muscle locked in horror. She wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Then, something worse. The girl's eyes snapped open. Her veins darkened beneath her skin. Her pupils vanished into white voids, and a grotesque grin twisted across her face. Slowly, impossibly, she stood again. And around the hall, others who had fallen before began to rise as well, pale, hollow, glowing eyes staring into the living. They were no longer victims. They were something else. Emily's chest seized with terror. She realized this wasn't a game. It was a nightmare, a curse born from decades of suffering. The guards didn't flinch. They acted as if this horror was routine. Emily backed away, clutching her flashlight, snapping a few photos with shaking hands before bolting toward the corridor. She didn't look back. She couldn't. Every shadow felt alive. Every gust of wind whispered her name. Somehow, She escaped into the forest, heart pounding, lungs burning, the cries still echoing in her ears. Days later, back at her apartment, Emily buried herself in old case files, desperate to make sense of what she had seen. In one dusty folder, she found a letter, a man from Vermont begging for help to find his missing fiancée, Claire, who had vanished a year earlier. A photograph was attached. Emily's blood ran cold. It was the same young woman she had seen executed on the island. Weeks later, authorities finally investigated. The facility stood abandoned, silent, but beneath its foundations they uncovered mass graves, hundreds of skeletons. DNA confirmed one of them belonged to Claire, yet no arrests were made. Officials dismissed it as unsolved history, a tragedy too old to follow. For months, Emily couldn't sleep. Every night she dreamed of glowing eyes, twisted grins, the sound of marbles striking stone before the echo of a gunshot. She tried to keep working, tried to move on, but the island wouldn't let her go. Then, one cold morning, news broke. Emily Carter had died in a sudden car crash on a quiet highway. To the public, it was an accident. To those who knew her story, it was something else. Locals still whisper about the island. They say if you drift too close, you can hear it. The cries, the gunshots, the echoes of twisted games that never truly ended.